between 5 and 7 a.m. and will traverse the Aurora, Isabela, Quirino, Ifuago, Nueva Vizcaya, Benguet, and La Union provinces. Stormy weather is expected over the areas under the tropical cyclone warning signals number 3 and 2. Travel by land is risky over those areas. I'll list those off in a moment. Expect moderate to heavy rains directly associated with the typhoon over northern and central Luzon. Residents in these areas, especially those living near river channels and low-lying areas and mountain areas, are advised to take appropriate actions against possible flooding and landslides. Coordinate with local disaster risk reduction and management offices. The storm surge is expected to be up to 3 meters, so around 10 feet, along the coastal areas of Isabela, Cagayan, Aurora, Ilocos Sur, Ilocos Norte, La Union, and Pangasinan. Fisher folks and those with small sea crafts are advised to not venture out over the seaboards of areas with tropical cyclone warnings. Eastern and western seaboards of southern Luzon and eastern seaboards of Visayas and Mindanao. Possible exit landmass this afternoon and will exit the Philippine area of responsibility by tomorrow evening. So the warnings are as follows. So we have signal 3 warnings, which suggests winds of 121 to 170 kilometers per hour, will be for Isabela, Quirino, Northern Aurora, Nueva Vizcaya, Ifuago, Benguet, La Union, Ilocos Sur, Mountain Province, and Pangasinan. The signal 2 warnings are for Cagayan, Ilocos Norte, Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Tarlac, Nueva Ecija, Northern Quezon, including Polillo Island, Southern Aurora, Zambales, Pampanga, and Bulacan, and Signal 1 warnings for Southern Quezon, Batanes, the Babayan group of islands, Rizal, Metro Manila, Laguna Batangas, Batan, Cavite, and Caminares Norte. So plan accordingly to your appropriate signal warning.
And let's hope everyone understood your tongue.
Did my mic cut out a bunch of times?
No, just who knows how the pronunciations are. We're not experts on that, at least. I think we would.
Yeah, I tried my best with the pronunciation. Some of them have a lot of consonants, and I kind of bumble them.
No, I think we all would. But yes, all of those locations. We're also, for those who prefer visuals, we've also got the map format showing everything here. This was as of the 2 a.m. position. Let's just see if I can drag it over a little bit to show you the 3 a.m. position now. So it's moved in just a little bit closer. 3 a.m. It's about there now. Still as a category 2. And landfall very close. You're back with the JMA map, and what's Tim showing us there? There's another look at Pagasa.
Basically outlining the same signal warnings that Devin just read out.
And I don't think Pagasa will be updating again until 5, or I guess until it makes landfall. But that flare-up on the southern side of the storm is still continuing at this time. Let me see if I can get a new position estimate now, as of 20 minutes ago. Might take a moment. So...
Yeah. And there's the latest Himari imagery. This is about 27 minutes old that I've got up on screen now.
So it actually hasn't moved in the last 10 minutes. Don't get worried. It will continue moving. Would hate for the storm to stall. That would be the worst case scenario at this point.
considering as close as it is to the coastline, that would be the absolute worst case nightmare for this area.
Yeah, we'd be talking about rainfall totals well over 500 millimeters over Luzon for sure with that kind of scenario. That's likely not to take place, though. It should be, at least the center should be clear of the island in 24 hours.
Should be a lot less than that, I would think.
Well, at least 24 hours.
The eye still not really impressing. That dry slot continuing to swirl around the western side.
Yeah, that is the loop for the last hour and 25 minutes, give or take. With the last image being about 30 minutes old now. And you can definitely see on that southern side, as you were alluding to, Nathan, there is some convection blowing up on the south side of it. But as we've been discussing, there is that dry slot to the north that's starting to entrench in on the western side of the eye wall. And it does look like in the last couple frames, it is trying to close that western side back off. Whether it's actually going to be able to do that or not, as close as it is to landfall, that's really still to be determined.
People seem to be starting to get really concerned about Yutu's potential impacts in Hong Kong. Unfortunately, due to its potential stalling nature here in the South China Sea, it is still far too early to determine what the potential effects will be for certain areas along coastal China. Despite it seeming, it can't be any more than 3 days out, well, it could be as much as a week out from even impacting China because of the very weak steering currents that are going to occur in South China Sea. Josh Karim just asked what cat is Yutu. The JMA, with their latest advisory, suggests 950 millibars, and that would put it at pretty much 115 miles an hour. So minimum category 3. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center says category 2 with winds of 90 knots or 105 miles per hour. And Pagasa says maximum sustained winds, now this is 10-minute winds, of 150 kilometers per hour with gustiness up to 185 kilometers an hour.
That's about category 2 as well.
Yeah, so that would be... So basically, taking the average of the three, knowing how they lean intensity-wise, we're looking at a borderline category 2, category 3 coming into landfall.
This is the first typhoon to make landfall on Isabela province in the month of October since Typhoon Naogi of 2011. Although that one was quite a bit stronger. Category 2 landfalls in this province are pretty rare. Only Elaine of 1974 and Nancy of 1954 have done so in the month of October.
Usually they're a lot stronger, I imagine.
Yeah, either stronger or weaker.
Okay, and there's the updated loop on the Himari, with the latest being 22 minutes old.
So we are continuing to be transfixed with the imagery as we keep watching to see whether it's...
Somebody also asks, is it bad?
Okay.
If you're not familiar with typhoons or hurricanes in general, a category...
I like how you approach that question.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those questions, you know, he asked it like 3 times, and finally got it out. But anyways, right now, Signal 3 warnings. I believe the Philippine office goes up to Signal 5 warnings.
It does now, yes.
So Signal 5 warnings are the absolute top, highest danger threat. And this is around, so this is Signal 3 warning. So this isn't like an extremely bad, terrible danger right now. However, the winds likely won't be the largest factor with this storm, as it's likely to weaken pretty quickly as it goes over Luzon. It's probably going to barely hang on to typhoon strength, if that, by the time it enters the South China Sea. JMA expects no typhoon, and as well as most of the models. And so right now, the biggest threat is going to be either the 3 meters of storm surge that is currently expected in the Signal 3 warning areas, or the potential of up to 500 millimeters of rainfall in the mountainous areas of Luzon, which could cause extreme flash flooding, mudslides, all the terrible stuff that would be normal in a very extreme rainfall event.
Well, it's 1 mile closer now, 23 until landfall.
And for those that are not familiar with metric conversion, because I know we're doing all this stuff in metric because that's the unit of measurement that's being used for all these information. 500 millimeters is equivalent to about 19 or 20 inches of rain going over the mountainous areas. I know some that have seen how Michael came through in the U.S. and Florence back in September saw we were getting 30 inches of rain in some spots. 19 inches is nothing to really take lightly, as Devin pointed out. That does have the potential of causing some flash flooding and mudslides in and around the mountainous areas. Definitely not some that you just want to write off. You're talking 19 inches of rain possibly, and then the storm surge, as we discussed last hour, could be an utmost of 7 to 10 feet on the coastline once you convert it over from metric. So to answer the question, is this going to be bad? Yeah, this is going to be a pretty bad storm. You're going to see a lot of damage in and of the area, but it is not going to be the worst that this area could have endured.
No doubt.
Definitely not the worst. Not even the worst storm that the Philippines have seen this year.
Yeah.
No, considering they just had Mancut make landfall about another 100 miles north of this area, and that was by far much worse and much more devastating than what this is going to be.
Yeah, Mancut is quite possibly one of the strongest storms to have ever hit the Philippines, period. And it was an absolutely devastating system. Of course, people are going to be experiencing even more rain in areas that have already gotten hit by Mancut, and that could trigger more mudslides in very vulnerable regions of the Philippines, which I imagine that can't be good as well.
Absolutely, considering look at the infrared imagery you can see up near, and I'll actually pull my mouse out for this. The areas up here in yellow were areas that were hit with Mancut about a month ago, and you can see they're already starting to get some rains up in and around that area. So if they haven't dried out from Mancut and the recovery process hasn't been complete, they're going to get some flooding and maybe some extra damage out of the area.
7 weeks or so since that.
Yeah, 7 weeks, because Mancut made landfall the same day that Florence hit the Wilmington, North Carolina area, quite literally 8 hours apart from each other.
Yes, it was just a question there. Is there a chance that Yutu may get stronger before landfall in Luzon? It's only got 23 miles to do it. Very, very small amount, Devin.
Don't think so. This isn't going to be a Michael-like scenario where it intensifies all the way up till landfall. This isn't the geographical region where that's going to happen. The conditions are not there for it as well. It's likely going to either maintain or potentially even wind down a little bit as it moves inland.
That,
It's
and
still
considering the area that it's hitting, as you alluded to with Willa over in the East Pack, this is actually a very mountainous area that this is going to be impacting. So once it does get closer, any chance of it trying to re-strengthen is going to be 0 to none once it starts getting interference from those higher mountaintops in the eastern Luzon region.
Do you think it'll mean anything, Devon, that that gap is there in the western part of the eye wall with that dry air entrainment, and whether this might just soften the blow slightly for those places that are initially going to get hit?
Well, that would be a very good thing. Any slight softening to the blow is obviously going to be good news, to say the least.
And that area of dry air that we were discussing is this area here on the northwestern side, trying to entrench into that inner core.
And succeeding.
Yeah, it is. But you do see it does look like the last few frames on the Himari that it is still trying to fight it off and close it off, but it does look like it is losing fight.
We've been saying that for 2 hours.
I know, that's why these storms are so fascinating, because they do some of the things that you would least expect them to do under the conditions that they're in.
It does appear to have slowed in the last half an hour or so, and that could make all the difference to prolonging the arduous wait that we currently have for the landfall. We're still thinking, what did we say? 4:30 or something?
Somewhere around there, 4:30 local time, yes.
Yeah, we were saying 4:30 local time. Pagasa is expecting it to be as late as 5.
They said 5 to 7, didn't they?
Yes. Right now on my screen, I pulled up a topographic map of the Philippines, and you can kind of see here with the Isabela province, right where it's going to end up making landfall. It's a very quick rise to over 1,500 meters right along the coastline. So that is very disruptive for any storm that's going to come across. And then, of course, there's going to be the Central Valley. And then there's going to be more mountains that ends up going across. And those mountains go up even higher. I see 2,900 meters, 2,600 meters, another 2,600 meters, 2,200 meters, another 2,200. So these mountains go up even higher, almost up to the 3 kilometers high in some places. And that is typically very, very disruptive for any storm going across the island.
Yeah, and that's usually classically any storms that do come across this area, no matter what intensity they are. Those higher mountains usually just rip the circulation to shreds. And that's usually what once they do.
I don't know if it's going to be that bad, but it's going to negatively impact it more than if it was just reasonably flat land.
Well, the storm managed to do half of its own destruction by itself.
That is true. I mean, we were actually very fortunate that it has disrupted itself as much as it has, considering 2 days ago we were looking at a Category 5 monster, and
was it only
now,
2 days ago?
2 or 2.5 days ago, give or take.
Surely it was more than that. I don't know. Although that second Category 5 peak, I didn't know where they got that from. Or was it a third? I can't remember. How many Category 5 peaks has this thing had?
I honestly do not know.
One.
I'd actually have to go back and look through the tracking data and actually see what the JWTC and JMA have given it over its course of its lifetime?
Category 5 peaks for Yutu?
Yeah,
2.
That's what I
2.
thought.
Okay.
The original one, and then there was another 2 Category 5 advisories on the 27th, and it's been beneath Category 5 since then, according to JTWC.
So you're right. I'm sorry about that. Although I'm not sure about its Category 5 credentials for that second peak.
Yeah, well, there you go on that. But that's what the JTWC has, anyways. Not sure what the JMA had. I think they kept it at around 920 millibars, if I remember correctly. Just quickly look on Digital Typhoon. They have all the JMA.
Still looks to me like there's been a bit of a... Let me just look on Tim's image there. Yeah, I still think there's been a bit of a west-northwest jog in the last hour.
It seems that they kept U2 at 950 millibars from 0Z on the 27th to 12Z on the 28th.
Alright.
So depending on what Westpac pressure conversion you're running, that can either be a high-end Category 4 or a mid-Category 5.
Well, we are going to stay on the air until the storm makes landfall, and that's going to be at some point. Goodness knows when. It hasn't moved very much in the first 24 minutes of this hour. It's only moved 2 miles in that time, and it's now 22 miles from land, from making landfall. Of course, that doesn't really matter much in real terms, does it? Because the strongest winds will be over land by now. At least in the western side.
Someone is asking what is the category in Bagao Cagayan. That is likely only to receive tropical storm force winds. It should not get to sustain typhoon conditions there.
Yes, Cagayan being a bit further north, there could be... I wouldn't be surprised if there's typhoon force gusts there, and actually I'm not sure I'd be surprised if there were typhoon conditions in the southern extreme there. Bagao is towards the coast, just behind the mountain bank, very close, pretty much exactly where Mangkut made landfall is where they're from, writing to us. So yeah, only tropical storm conditions you'd expect there.
With typhoon gusts.
Let's see, Cagayan, Isabela province. I'm not too familiar with that area, but I believe you covered it up that the Isabela province is the area that we're looking to see the imminent landfall at, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Kaiwan City is inland.
Could get an eye passage though.
Yeah, that could get an eye passage, but how much of the eye is really going to be left at that point?
There's not much left of it now.
No doubt, you'll be receiving typhoon force conditions in that area. I don't think that they'll be much stronger than Category 2 sustained.
So a reminder of what the colours mean on the satellite imagery. These really denote, in its strictest,
how tall the cloud tops are.
In its strictest term, it's the temperature of the cloud tops, and obviously the colder the temperature that's being sent back to the satellite, that obviously corresponds with a taller cloud top because it extends higher up into the atmosphere. and that usually symbolizes more intensity underneath all of that.
Yeah, that southern blow-up that we were looking at least on the Himari 8 imagery that we were looking at just a couple minutes ago, some of those cloud temperatures are starting to hit that minus 80 threshold, which means those are some really high cloud tops, and there's a lot of heavy convective activity in and around those cloud areas.
And if you are unfamiliar with this imagery, it's the pink areas that are the coldest of the cloud tops, the most intense, followed by the whites, then into the blacks, then to the red, yellow, green, blue, and eventually grey for the worst, barely any clouds at all. And then of course it also gives you a decent depiction of the eye and just exactly what it's looking like.
Someone is asking about Gui Bang Gamu in Isabella. That's likely to receive basically the same impacts as Kawan City. Typhoon force conditions pretty much a guarantee. Potentially, you guys could get Category 2 force gusts as it ends up coming over the mountains. But pretty much the same impacts there.
Let me see. Is that...
Just to give you a little idea of how far away the storm is from more relatable population centers, Carayan City is 68 miles away. Santiago City is 82 miles. Tuguegarao is 89 miles. On the west coast, San Fernando City is still 164 miles away, and down in Manila, still 193 miles from the center of the storm. It's going to be very close for Manila whether it gets tropical storm force winds or not.
I think they're probably going to get... I think they're likely going to get gusts, but I don't know about really sustained.
The gusts are probably enough of a reason why Pagasa does have the Signal 1 warnings down in and around the Metro Manila area.
Yep. And as well, they should, because the Signal 1 warnings aren't even for tropical storm force conditions. It's actually for weaker than tropical storm force conditions. So... at least for the most part.
There's another look at our depiction of where we're at right now. There's the 3 a.m. Philippine time position of this Category 2 storm. Palanan is marked there for reference, and the blue areas we've marked out are places where 500 millimeters of rain could occur. The darkest orange shade there is Signal 3 warnings. We might just put up a big 3 on top of that just so that people know. So there's a big 3 for the Signal 3 warnings. Further north, the Signal 2 there, and also to the south. And the lightest shade are Signal 1 warnings covering, including Metro Manila. That's the current status. I doubt any of these warnings will change until they get removed. The storm won't intensify substantially. It could intensify maybe by about 5 miles an hour before landfall, but we're really getting very close.
And just to give those that are watching an idea of what Pagasa is meaning by the Signal 3 warnings, the wind impacts that they're calling for with these is winds of greater than 121 kilometers up to 170 kilometers per hour for at least 18 hours. Many of the coconut trees may be broken or destroyed. Almost all banana plants may be downed, and a large number of trees may be uprooted. Rice and corn crops may suffer heavy losses. Majority of the Nipa and Kogon houses may be unroofed or destroyed, and there may be considerable damage to structures of light to medium construction. There may be widespread disruption of electrical power and communication services. And in general, moderate to heavy damage may be experienced, particularly in the agricultural and industrial sectors. The best way I can equate this is they're calling for what would be, I want to say, Category 2 equivalent of the Saffir-Simpson scale in terms of damage, at least how I'm reading that.
That's pretty much the case. 170 kilometer per hour winds would equate to 105 miles an hour. So yeah,
That's
that would
about
be
dead on a Category 2 equivalent.
Yeah, that's Category 2 force conditions there. Signal
and
3
that's just some
Signal
of the Signal
3
3s.
actually encompasses pretty much Category 1 to Category 2 conditions, 75 to 105 miles an hour.
And
It
then
is
going,
the imperial translation there.
yeah, and then going down the Signal 2s.
And that would be
that
tropical storm force conditions.
Exactly. And
And
then
then
we were discussing the Signal 1s, which those are
that's
30
beneath.
Yeah, that's basically your, I would say, your thunderstorm gusts up to maybe minimal tropical storm force winds at the very extreme.
That's what it is. 37 miles per hour is the conversion for 60 kilometers.
Yeah, just a little below tropical storm or gale force threshold. And for those that are wanting to see this for more information, this is on the Pagasa website. That is the Philippines equivalent to the National Hurricane Center, as we would use over here in the United States.
Yep. I'll post the link to the actual advisory if you want to click on that in the chat. That's the link to the PDF advisory that Pagasa has put out about an hour and a half ago.
Okay.
What may well happen is that Pagasa may call a landfall before us.
I am getting lagged out.
And it may be possible, considering the Himari imagery that we've been looking at is probably 20 to 25 minutes behind real-time imagery. So it's very possible that we're a lot closer than what the Himari is actually showing.
Oh, we just had an outage there. What was I saying?
I'm not entirely sure what your train of thought was there for a moment there, Nathan. I think we kind of got derailed.
No, there was a complete technological outage here, so I can't remember what I was talking about now, but there we go. Yes, Pagasa, they may declare a landfall before we do. That is because they tend to do that when the edge of the eye makes landfall. We only call it when the center of the eye, in other words, the center of the storm, makes landfall over any landmass. I can tell you, the latest is that the storm is now 18 miles from landfall. That is something like 25 kilometers, a little bit more.
And that should mean that the edge of the eye should be creeping ashore pretty much right now. So that will continue to just keep on creeping closer and closer and closer as we are.
So that would mean then the edge of the eye, if it's using that westward position, should be somewhere probably in this area, since the Himari imagery is about 24 minutes old.
Yep. So that's pretty much more confirming that we're likely going to see the landfall probably within the next hour or so. Maybe if it really wants to putt around there off the coast, maybe it might be an hour and a half, but it really shouldn't be too much longer now.
I'm just trying to make sense of the imagery that you're showing us there, because it looks so different to mine.
Yeah, this is the Himari 8, and it's the last image that I have, and I'll actually stop it on this last loop so you can get the
And that-
UTC timestamp.
That last image is what time?
1912 UTC.
1912. My latest image is 1912, and it shows the storm about twice as close to land as yours does.
Which is really odd. I mean, this is the
But then I
Himari
noticed
imagery.
at the beginning of that loop that you were showing us, the outlines were moving about on the graphic, so I don't have much faith in that.
Yeah,
That's great.
That
You
might
see
be
that?
the satellites repositioning there.
Well, it's the slider. Slider does this. Slider is still a pretty experimental piece of technology put out by Colorado State, and something very similar happened with Hurricane Michael, where we were tracking it was just going along perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden Slider positioned the storm like 250 miles to the south of where it actually was. So, it's still an experimental piece of software. So I would continue to exercise caution.
Yeah. Tim, if you're able to see the actual stream, our output right now, you can see on my graphic here, this is what I think is actually the case.
Yeah, that does look a lot closer than what the Himari here is showing. Yeah. Let me actually see if I can find out what geographic areas are in and around off your image, see what cities there are that could be potentially getting this imminent landfall.
Well, there's only one, and that was, what was that place called again? Palanan, I think?
Yeah, that would be Palanan.
That's a town with a population of 17,000. A very inaccessible place, I'm led to believe. I'm not sure you can get there by motor vehicle. You can either.
No, that's about 6 miles in from shore, so that would probably be the closest.
Yeah, well, it's on the other side of the mountain cut there. So in that area of the coastline there of Luzon is pretty much uninhabited.
Apart from that town. What they do have, though, at least...
that town's situated right on a river.
They do at least have an airstrip. If things go badly, they can get supplies flown in.
Yeah, that is... Palanan is a pretty isolated area. The nearest city from there might be San Mariano to its southwest, and that's roughly 20 miles away.
Is that along the coast?
No, that's further inland.
No, that's on the other side of the mountain cut.
I see, you're going in that direction. To the south there's one or two small towns as well, isn't there? And that'll be under that massive flare-up of convection right now.
Yeah, looks like the town of Dilasag, which is down in which is down in the Cagayan Valley area. That is getting those
a few small communities there. Yeah,
that's getting the pinks and whites that are showing up on your imagery. You also got Casaguran further to the south that's being impacted with those higher cloud tops. And then all the way up to the far north,
there's nothing at all in the north.
Up there were those lighter
one or
reds
two very small places.
Yeah, you got Santa Ana and Gonzaga that's getting
you mean right up there?
To heavy rain. So areas all the way from Santa Ana all the way down into Dillasong, the Cagayan Valley, and even further south down into looks like Manila should have the conditions deteriorating just a little bit as this Category 2 the equivalent typhoon nears further and further towards landfall.
Yep, and still drawing nearer. We're now down to 16 miles at this point. So it's not long until
this is pretty much just the point in time where the anxiety just starts creeping up, and it's like, just get there already.
Exactly, and
I mean that's what happens with all of these slower moving systems. Like Michael, it was moving pretty fast, so it like got there, but like Florence, and Yutu, it's like
Florence.
Oh my God!
Yes.
I swear to God, Florence was never even going to make landfall. It
Not
just sat there.
Yeah, not to sidetrack onto Florence, but I remember watching the next rat once it made landfall there in Wrightsville, and I just sat there almost crying my eyes out watching that western eye wall as it just kept pounding the city of Wilmington as it made that southerly turn and just skirted the coastline. These systems, when they start making these approaches and they slow down, it is anguishing not just for those in the area, but for us that are trying to get the information out. We just wanted to just get and go instead of putting all of us through the high anxiety and nervousness of this impending landfall and doom that we know is coming.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hand back over to your imagery there, Tim.
Yeah, I've got the Google Earth up just so everybody has an idea of what areas we're talking about. Right here where my crosshairs at, that is Palanan, which is, I think, it is about 6 miles inland off the coastline.
But the way this thing is going, it is still jogging to the west-northwest. That place could get an eye passage at this point.
Yeah, you sound like you kind of cut out there again, Nathan, so I didn't quite get the distance that you had noted.
I didn't know the distance, just that its movement at the minute, taking on a west-northwest movement in the last 30 minutes to an hour, could get the eye.
And
or
you're
the
talking
edge of the eye.
16 miles out.
It is, yes, somewhere around there.
Yeah, which would be right there. Let me actually mark that again. Yeah, there's 16, 17 miles out. So for those that are seeing this stream, right here where this yellow dot is where I started my plot, that's where the center of Yutu is at, and then you can see it's only just another 5 or 6 miles up to Palanan. And I know Devin mentioned it earlier, this is a pretty mountainous and isolated area. You can actually see the topography of all the mountains in and around the Palanan area. So this is a very isolated area, and if it takes the full brunt of this, I would not be surprised if there's not some severe, if not potential devastation of this area. I know we have been discussing this the last 2 hours, and I don't think we've really touched the CDPS potential on this.
We haven't because I didn't know what it was.
Not a problem.
Yeah, well, the thing is that with I haven't really focused on the Westpac with the CDPS, mainly because it's very difficult to get an accurate size value for these storms.
Well, using your
like main cut,
judgment.
I called a stage 10 because that was going to be like it was every single size estimate was well over, so that was clear cut. But this storm, the size estimates have been all over the place, so it could be anywhere between a 5 and a 7 depending on what source you use. So it's all over the place.
Yeah, and I can understand that. And it looks like, do we have live radar of the eye actually coming into radar range there?
Yes. The center of the eye would appear to be entering the radar scope now. That radar must be from quite some distance away. I think it's from Baguio City or somewhere around there. That's near the western coast. So it's going all the way from west to east. And it's on the edge of the scope there. What looks to be, it's a bit difficult to make out, but it looks like the eye about to appear on the imagery there. That last image is as of what time? No idea.
Although that's always nice.
30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I thought it would be more up to date than the satellite. Turns out it's just about the same.
Oh wow.
Well, you guys are really having a field day with imagery. My latest imagery, of course, because I used the BD enhanced, is of an hour and 17 minutes ago.
Ouch.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you do have any more questions for us on the stream, we are here for you. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. I'm not sure just how much more we can do as broadcasters, because I feel that our best abilities are used well before a storm event when we're forecasting the thing, when we're talking about potential impacts, when we're talking about who should be preparing and who will avoid the storm. And I think we do a fantastic job at that. I'm not saying we do a bad job at covering the storm when it strikes, but I just feel,
It's the information ends up being less useful because by the time the storm ends up impacting here, a lot of people's power is already going to be going out.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to be watching a stream like this. What ends up happening with as the storm gets closer to land, it's pretty much just waiting for the reports to come through. If you know of any reports, feel free to leave them in the comments. We will investigate. So if you have any reports,
we love
of
community
damage,
engagement,
wind speed, rainfall,
Absolutely.
anything is a help, to say the least.
Absolutely. And if you don't have access to this stream, we here at Force 13 also have access to Facebook and Twitter. So if you can't get the information onto this stream, we have those other social media services available to where you can report your information there, and we can take a look at it and take the information and value it for what it is.
Yeah, that's any information is a help. Of course, we got to investigate it first, but any information is always help at a time like this when we're just waiting for the storm to come inland, because this is mainly more for, at this point, for families watching. They know that their loved ones are in the path of the typhoon and they're not, and they're just very concerned at what's going on. Phones are out, internet's down, can't contact them. This is the people like us doing these streams, we're basically their interpreters for what's going on out in the field.
That's a good way of putting it.
Absolutely, and that's very true with not just this particular tropical system, but any tropical system in general. I know here in the U.S., when we had Michael come through earlier in the month, and even with Florence back in September, while we were doing streams, I was constantly getting text messages from families up in Ohio, Pennsylvania, asking, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on there?" And that's basically what we were able to do in our position here.
Shows how much of a hectic month we've had when Michael is still in this month.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It feels like eons ago.
Robert Sibian says in La Union, which is on the western coast, that's where San Fernando City is. La Union currently not experiencing heavy rain or wind.
That will change pretty soon.
Yes, that will change as the typhoon continues to head off to the west. depending on where you are in the province, because it is quite a big one. The northern end of the province is likely to receive typhoon conditions. Bangkok, maybe as far south as Bacnatan, but San Juan, San Fernando, that's likely to get tropical storm force winds with some hurricane force gusts. And south of there is probably just going to be sub-typhoon winds.
Yes. This is Force 13 live. Looks like we'll be going into another hour because the storm hasn't made landfall yet.
No, it hasn't, but based on the imagery you have on stream, Nathan, and what we've been discussing, landfall should be very imminent, if not within the next hour, if not less, depending on where the center fix is at.
Someone just asked if it will landfall here in Iligan City. It looks like it's going to make landfall just to the south of Iligan City in Palanan.
The problem is, if it's going that west-northwest track that Nathan is suggesting that it's starting to exhibit, that would put Iligan City 28 miles away from Palagan, which could potentially be in the line once it actually makes landfall and goes through Palanan and up and towards that area.
Yeah. That's not to say that Iligan City, of course, is not going to get affected by the storm. They're going to get a Category 2 force winds, no doubt about it. Maybe even Category 3 force gusts, winds potentially gusting in excess of 170 kilometers per hour, which would be your normal threshold for Signal 3.
We can now confirm that the storm is 12 miles from landfall at this time. And just extrapolating what the storm's been doing in the half hour that we don't yet have, because obviously the imagery is half an hour old, if we were to extrapolate the previous half hour, we can guess at this point that the storm is 3 miles from land.
Okay. Well, there you go. 3 miles from land. So basically, landfall imminent here at 4 o'clock Philippine time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be right on 4 o'clock that this is
right
going to happen.
Right at 4 o'clock, pretty much.
It would appear so. That's what we're at right now. What's going to be presented at the bar at the bottom, it will still say 12 miles because that's what we can confirm. But you know, it may as well be on land now. It's very close.
See, I'm trying to get a fix on the geography. Okay, I think I've
really
got
coming
it.
apart, by the way. Though it's looking not very good. The eyes completely shriveled up.
This is actually what this region needs, is for this to fall apart right before landfall. And at 3 miles out, I actually have it plotted out on the Google Earth, and then you can see Palanan actually just on the far left side of the map that I've got up, Nathan.
Just a minute. Yes. Oh, whose phone is that?
That'd be mine. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, it's no, actually not there. Further south.
Really?
Blade Knight now says we're experiencing super strong wind right now at Iligan City. Will it add more strength? Will it become stronger? Well, I think you're pretty much going through the worst of the storm, at least one of the worst parts of the storm right now. Conditions likely won't deteriorate much more than what they are right now in Iligan City. They could get a little bit stronger, but I don't anticipate it getting much worse than it is now.
And you can see I've got Iligan City highlighted there on the Google Earth map, with Palanan a little bit further to the east. And you said it was a little bit further south from where I had to fix that, Nathan?
Yep, we think. I mean, if we extrapolate its past movement to present, We think it's going to be somewhere around 16 point. Just a minute. 16.86, I think.
Someone now asks, will Yutu become a Category 3 or 4 again?
Time's up.
It's likely,
highly unlikely. No, it's making
it's likely
landfall
making
now.
landfall as a borderline Category 3 right now. JMA thinks that it's a borderline Category 3 if you were to take their wind pressure estimate.
Yutu's out of time, and so are we for this hour. We'll be back again at the top of the next hour in just a few minutes' time. We'll be live until the storm makes landfall. It's not going to be a very long time. We'll probably stay on for about 15 minutes or so. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned. Typhoon Yutu, Philippine name Rosita, is arriving.
Coverage continues in a moment.